expectation. Expectation rarely arrives as pressure. At first, it feels like guidance, like a gentle hand on your back, quietly steering you toward what others believe is right. Nora grew up listening to that voice. She learned how to become acceptable, impressive, and promising. Expectations came from family, society, teachers, and eventually from herself. Each one felt manageable, even motivating. But expectations do not stop. They multiply. Once one is met, another takes its place. Happiness is always delayed, always waiting on the next achievement. Rest becomes conditional. In this life, Nora felt the deep exhaustion of always preparing to live instead of actually living. She saw how expectation taught her to postpone joy and mistrust stillness. Letting go felt dangerous, like stepping into darkness without instructions. Yet beneath the fear was honesty. For the first time, she wondered who she might become if she stopped chasing who she was supposed to be. Life and death and the quantum wave function. Nora began to understand life as something unstable and unfinished. It was not a single path, but a field of possibilities, all existing at once. Like a quantum wave, her life had once contained countless versions of herself. Different loves, different careers, different cities. Each one real until a choice forced one reality into focus. Living was the act of collapsing infinite potential into a single moment. Death, then, was not only an ending, it was the permanent closing of possibility, the final unanswered question. That thought frightened her, but it also brought clarity. If uncertainty was woven into existence, then failure was never personal. It was structural. No one could choose perfectly when perfection did not exist. Meaning was not found in certainty, but in participation. In choosing anyway. In staying involved. Life was not about selecting the best outcome. It was about continuing to choose. If something is happening to me, I want to be there. For much of her life, Nora had learned how to disappear without leaving. She remained polite, functional, and outwardly present, while quietly distancing herself from experience. Pain had taught her caution. Disappointment had taught her observation. It felt safer to watch life than to feel it fully. But something changed. A simple thought took hold. If something was happening to her, she wanted to be there. Not later. Not in reflection. Now. Life was not a rehearsal. It was unfolding whether she participated or not. Presence did not promise happiness. It promised honesty. It meant allowing boredom, fear, grief, and joy to exist without escaping them. Being present meant risk. It meant vulnerability. Yet it also meant truth. For the first time, Nora chose awareness over protection. That choice did not make life easier. It made it real. And reality, she realized, was worth showing up for. God and Other Librarians. Nora had expected authority, rules, judgment, a single truth imposed from above. Instead, she found caretakers of possibility. Librarians, not rulers. They did not assign meaning. They preserved options. God, if such a presence existed, did not feel like control. It felt like allowance. A quiet permission to choose, to fail, and to try again. The universe was not demanding greatness. It was not measuring worth. It simply offered shelves of lives, each one waiting patiently to be opened. There was comfort in that absence of judgment. No cosmic disappointment, no punishment for choosing incorrectly. Meaning was not dictated. It was discovered through experience. Nora realized that responsibility was not a burden. It was freedom. To choose was frightening, but it was also proof of being alive. Existence was not a test. It was an invitation, and the answer was never right or wrong, only chosen. Fame. From a distance, fame shimmered like validation. It looked like evidence that a life had mattered, that it had been seen. But inside it, Nora felt strangely erased. Her complexity flattened into an image others consumed, admired but not known. Attention was loud and relentless. Every success raised expectations higher. Every mistake echoed longer. Fame magnified achievement, but it also magnified fear. The fear of fading, of being replaced, of no longer being wanted. Privacy disappeared, and with it, rest. She realized that visibility was not the same as connection. Applause did not equal understanding. Sometimes anonymity offered more space to breathe, more room to be human. Fame promised meaning, but often delivered performance. And Nora understood that a quiet life lived honestly could hold more truth than a celebrated one lived for approval. Milky Way. Under the Milky Way, Nora felt small in a way that did not hurt. The stars did not care about her regrets or mistakes. They did not require her to be exceptional. They simply existed. She was one brief moment in an ancient universe, a tiny spark surrounded by endless time. Yet that did not make her meaningless. It made her precious. Her life did not need to echo across centuries to matter. It needed only to be lived. Looking up, she felt relief. The pressure to be extraordinary loosened. Meaning did not come from scale or permanence. It came from presence. From being here, breathing, noticing. The universe did not demand significance. It offered perspective. And within that vastness, Nora found comfort. Her life was small, yes, but it was real. And that was enough. Wild and free. Freedom, Nora learned, was not escape. It was not chaos or rebellion. It was alignment. A quiet agreement between who you are and how you live. In this life, she felt the relief of choosing without rehearsing explanations. She moved without apology. Not because she was careless, but because she was honest. Being wild did not mean destruction. It meant authenticity. For so long, she had mistaken freedom for running away. But true freedom required staying. Staying present, staying responsible, choosing openly. It asked for courage, not recklessness. Freedom was not the absence of limits. It was the presence of intention. And in living this way, Nora felt lighter. Not because life was easier, but because it finally made sense. She was no longer fighting herself. She was listening. And that, she realized, was the truest form of freedom she had ever known. Ryan Bailey. Ryan's life was not dramatic. It was built from routine, compromise, and quiet effort. There were dreams he adjusted, expectations he softened, paths he did not take. Yet his life continued. It adapted. With Ryan, love was not urgent or overwhelming. It was steady, reliable. It existed in small gestures and shared silence. There were no grand declarations, only presence. And Nora realized how rarely she had valued that kind of love. She had once believed meaning required intensity, but here she saw something different. A life did not need spectacle to be real. It needed care, persistence, choice. Ryan's life was not perfect, but it was lived. And for the first time, Nora understood that survival itself could be a form of success. Not every meaningful life announces itself loudly. Some simply continue, quietly, and endure. A silver tray of honey cakes. Joy arrived without warning, without drama. It came softly, like warmth spreading through the chest. Nora realized how many moments she had missed because they were not extraordinary. Happiness did not always shout. Sometimes it whispered. A taste, a smell, a shared moment. She had spent years waiting for joy to justify itself, to prove it was important enough to notice. But joy did not ask permission. It appeared briefly and asked only to be felt. In this life, Nora learned to accept sweetness without suspicion, to stop questioning whether she deserved it. The honey cakes were not symbolic of success or transformation. They were simply pleasant, and that was enough. Happiness did not need to change her life to matter. It only needed to exist. And in allowing herself to notice these moments, Nora discovered that joy had been present all along, waiting patiently to be welcomed. The Podcast of Revelations, 150 words. When Nora spoke honestly, something unexpected happened. People listened, and they answered back. Strangers shared their own stories, their own fears, their own unfinished thoughts. Pain, once spoken, lost some of its weight. It became shared, and sharing transformed isolation into connection. Her voice did not solve anything, but it opened space. She realized that vulnerability was not weakness. It was an invitation. By admitting uncertainty, she allowed others to do the same. And in that exchange, meaning emerged. The podcast was not about answers. It was about presence. About saying, "This is what I am experiencing," and allowing that to be enough. Nora learned that being heard did not require perfection. It required honesty. And honesty, when offered freely, had a way of bringing people together across distance, difference, and silence. Howl. The poem refused politeness. It was messy, raw, and alive. It did not explain itself. It did not ask to be liked. It existed fully, unapologetically. As Nora listened, she felt something loosen. The poem gave her permission. Permission to be unfinished, to be loud, to be confused. Life did not need to be elegant to be true. She had spent so much time trying to organize herself into something presentable. But here was proof that chaos could hold meaning, that intensity could be honest. Howl did not offer comfort. It offered recognition. It said, "This too belongs." And Nora realized how much of herself she had hidden for fear of disorder. The poem reminded her that expression did not need approval to exist. It needed only courage. And courage, she felt, was something she could finally begin to claim. Love and pain. Love always carried pain. To avoid one was to abandon the other. Nora had tried to protect herself by staying distant, by minimizing attachment. But safety came at a cost. Loss was not proof that something had failed. It was proof that something had mattered. Pain did not erase love. It confirmed it. In this life, Nora stopped treating suffering as a mistake. She accepted it as evidence of connection. Loving deeply meant risking loss. Caring meant vulnerability. She understood now that a painless life would also be a shallow one. And while pain hurt, it also reminded her that she was alive, that she had reached outward, that she had felt. Love was not meant to be safe. It was meant to be real. And reality, she learned, was always a mixture. Joy and grief, hope and regret. To love fully was to accept them together. Equidistance. Balance was not the absence of conflict. It was the ability to hold opposing truths without collapsing. Joy and sorrow, hope and regret, certainty and doubt. Nora realized that a meaningful life was not one consistent feeling. It was a spectrum. To live fully was to allow contradictions to exist side by side. She no longer searched for a perfect emotional state. Instead, she learned to stand in the middle, to accept complexity. Equidistance was not peace. It was stability within motion, a way of standing between extremes without denying either. In this space, Nora felt grounded, not because life had resolved itself, but because she had stopped demanding resolution. Meaning did not require clarity. It required engagement. Her life would never be simple, but it could be honest. And in that honesty, she found something stronger than certainty. She found balance, not as an answer, but as a way of continuing.